Welcome back to Ember of Emotions, where every story touches your heart and every word burns like a memory. Today I want to share a story with you, a story called The Last Time She Smiled. I still remember the first time I saw her. It wasn't like in the movies. There was no slow motion, no dramatic background music. It was just a completely normal, ordinary day that somehow, in an instant, became unforgettable. She smiled, and that simple, fleeting moment became the start of everything. Her name was Aina, and her smile held a kind of peace I'd never seen before, the kind that makes silence feel not just comfortable but beautiful. We weren't a perfect couple. We didn't have a fairy tale romance, but we were real. Our days were filled with long, aimless walks, late-night texts that stretched into the early morning, and quiet promises that felt like they would last forever. But forever is just a word we use when we forget that time is relentless, that it always moves on. It started subtly. First it was the missed calls, which I told myself were nothing. Then came the unread messages, left unseen for hours, then days. Slowly, painstakingly, I began to realize that love doesn't always end with a loud, dramatic fight. Sometimes it just fades, like the last light of a sunset, so quietly you almost miss it happening. I remember asking her once, my voice trembling just a little, "Are we okay?" She replied, "Yes, of course. I'm just busy." But her eyes told a completely different story. And that smile, the one I had fallen so deeply in love with, it had changed. It wasn't the same carefree smile that lit up her face and said, "I'm happy." It had become the kind of smile people use to hide their pain, a mask to cover the cracks that were starting to show. One evening, my phone buzzed. It was her. Her voice was so soft it was almost breaking. "Can we meet?" she asked. That one question hung in the air, heavy with everything we hadn't been saying. I remember that day with perfect clarity. The sky was painted with the colors of the sunset, a gentle breeze was blowing, and she was standing there, waiting for me in that simple white dress. She smiled at me when I approached, and for a fleeting, beautiful second, it felt just like old times. For a moment I let myself believe everything was fine. We talked, but we didn't really talk. We spoke about random, meaningless things, the weather, her new job, my future plans, everything except the one thing that mattered: us. It was like we were two actors on a stage, reading from a script, avoiding the final, heartbreaking scene. And then, just before she left, she turned to me and said something I will never ever forget. She looked me right in the eyes and said, "Take care of yourself, okay?" There was no goodbye, no explanation, no closure, just that one last smile, the last one she ever gave me. And then she walked away. Days turned into weeks. Her number was still saved in my phone, a ghost in my contacts list. But my heart already knew the truth. She wasn't coming back. I used to replay that final moment in my head over and over again, trying to understand it. The way she smiled before walking away. It wasn't a smile of happiness. It was a smile of peace. It was the smile of someone who had finally let go, even if I was still holding on with everything I had. That's the thing about love, isn't it? Sometimes one person moves on, and the other is left behind, frozen in a single memory, waiting, remembering, and hoping for something that's already gone. It took me years to finally understand. Her last smile wasn't the end of our love story. It was her way of saying thank you. Thank you for the moments, for the laughter, for the memories. Thank you for being a chapter in her life that she would always remember, even as she turned the page. Maybe we're not all meant to last forever with the people we love. Maybe some people come into our lives just to change us, to teach us something, and then they have to leave. And maybe, just maybe, that's beautiful in its own way. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Ember of Emotions, because sometimes even a goodbye can be beautiful. Thank you for listening. We'll see you in the next story.